The jurisdictional risk discount, why a great project in a bad country is a bad project. Welcome to Mineral Projects Intel, where we dig deeper into the world of mineral projects, where we unpack the complex world of mineral projects investment, and where we make sense of the science, strategy, and sometimes the jargon behind it all. If you've ever wondered why a great project might not necessarily be a great investment, you're in the right place. In this video, we explore the why a great project in a bad country is a bad project. We will explore some jurisdictional risks, the consequences, and some mitigation measures that can be explored. This topic is one of many where we look beyond the technical parameters and dig deeper into country risks, infrastructure, market, financial risks, etc., in order to arrive at an informed decision of whether an investment is sound or not. In this video, we will discuss why a brilliant deposit can become a terrible investment once country risk enters the equation. We will unpack the jurisdictional risk discount, what it is, how it wrecks economics, how markets price it, and what developers and investors can do to manage it. By the end, you'll understand why the smartest investors often put the country first, and then the deposit second. Jurisdictional risk is the chance that decisions, actions, or instability at the country or regional level will reduce or eliminate the expected cash flows from a project. It's not about the rock, it's about the rules, the people, and the risk of those rules changing. There is a myriad of risks that fall under jurisdictional risks, also known as country risks, and these include: one obvious risk is where there is political instability caused by coups, civil unrest, or war. The news is an obvious source of information for this. The second important risk is legal uncertainty risk, which results from shifting mining codes or in countries with retroactive laws. High legal uncertainty risk exists where laws are unclear, enforcement is inconsistent, and rights cannot be reliably defended over the life of a mine. Investors identify it through regulatory behavior, legal precedent, enforcement track records, institutional indicators, and the actions of other mining companies, not just what the mining code claims on paper. Permitting delays are significant risks that shift project timelines and affect every financial and operational assumption. Without naming any countries, permitting delay risk is highest in jurisdictions where the approval process exists in law but fails in practice. This risk is less about whether permits are required and more about whether they are issued predictably, transparently, and within reasonable timeframes. Fiscal risk is the uncertainty that a government may change taxes, royalties, or financial terms in ways that reduce a mining project's expected profitability. This risk is high, for example, in countries with unstable public finances, where governments face budget deficits, debt stress, or currency crises and turn to mining as a quick revenue source through new taxes or levies. Security of tenure risk is the uncertainty that a company's mining or exploration rights may not be upheld, renewed, or protected, potentially leading to loss of access to the deposit. For investors, the issue is not whether a mining license exists today, but whether it can be defended or renewed predictably over the life of mine. To understand how each of these risks result in project failure, let's look at the potential failure channels. Political instability results in weakening rule of law, which increases the risk that contracts, licenses, or land agreements will not be honored. In unstable political environments, court decisions may be unpredictable, mining rights may be revoked by new political actors, and the possibility of expropriation increases. Legal uncertainty, one of the most destructive non-technical risks in the mining sector, undermines the enforceability of rights, agreements, and economic assumptions. Legal uncertainty also makes long-term contracts, such as joint ventures, royalties, supply agreements, and offtake contracts, vulnerable to renegotiation or voiding. If the legal system does not consistently uphold commercial contracts, partners fear that agreements will be rewritten under political influence or local pressure. Off-takers, smelters, and industrial consumers avoid committing to multi-year purchase agreements if they cannot rely on contract enforcement. Without these guaranteed revenue streams, financiers will not provide debt, leaving the project without the capital needed to proceed. Permitting delays are one of the most common reasons mining projects never reach production. A delay is not merely an administrative inconvenience. In mining, time has a direct monetary value. When permits stall, the entire project timeline shifts, and this ripples through every financial and operational assumption. When a government unexpectedly changes fiscal terms, the impact spreads quickly through every part of the project's economics, with the biggest risk being the direct reduction in project cash flow. Higher royalties, new export duties, windfall taxes, or increases in corporate tax take money directly out of operating margins. Because these taxes apply per ton, per ounce, or per dollar of revenue, they immediately reduce the free cash flow available to service debt or generate returns for investors. Security of tenure, the certainty that a company legally owns and will continue to own its mineral rights for the full life of the mine, is one of the most fundamental requirements of any mining investment. When tenure is uncertain, contested, revocable, or politically vulnerable, the effect is catastrophic. The first transmission channel is the impact on financing and bankability. Lenders and investors require enforceable rights that stretch 15 to 30 years into the future in order to justify long-term capital. If a mining license can be cancelled, suspended, or reassigned to another party, financiers immediately classify the project as unbankable. Without bank finance, a mine cannot be built, no matter how strong the geology is. The higher the perceived jurisdictional or country risk, the higher the discount rate investors apply, and a higher discount rate reduces the project's net present value (NPV), sometimes dramatically. Therefore, a project can go from bankable to uneconomic just because the country is risky. So how do markets and financiers respond to country risks? Well, banks and investors price these risks in three ways. 1. Higher required return, discount rate. 2. Higher contingency and capex built into feasibility studies. And 3. Stricter financing terms or refusal to finance at all. Other responses include equity investors requiring a bigger stake for the same project, or off-take partners demanding sovereign guarantees or cast iron contracts, which may be unavailable, all which apply a chokehold on the project. So, as we have touched on, the consequences can be devastating, like a permit delay balloons, capex, and interest during construction. A tax change can cut margins significantly. Security shutdowns cause intermittent production losses, which reduce annual cash and harm project economics. Any of these alone can reduce the value by tens or hundreds of millions. Together, the project often dies on the balance sheet. So now we arrive at a very important question. What can investors do, or what strategies can they employ to mitigate these risks? Investors aren't powerless in high-risk jurisdictions. There are several practical strategies they can use to protect themselves. 1. Rigorous country screening and risk scoring, which many juniors skip but shouldn't. Understanding the political, legal, and fiscal landscape early helps avoid fatal mistakes later. 2. Investors can also use stage financing, committing small amounts during exploration or early studies, and only increasing exposure once key risks are reduced. 3. Obtaining political risk insurance can buffer losses from expropriation, civil unrest, or arbitrary government actions. 4. Entering into strong host government agreements and stabilization clauses can lock in fiscal terms or legal protections, though investors must be realistic about how enforceable these are in weak jurisdictions. 5. Building local partnerships and genuine community engagement, including proper social and labor plans, can reduce social conflict and improve long-term stability. On the technical side, flexible mine plans, such as phased development or lower upfront capex, reduce exposure if conditions deteriorate. Finally, investors should rely on conservative financial modeling, testing pessimistic scenarios, using higher contingencies, and ensuring the project can still survive if the jurisdiction throws unexpected challenges at them. In short, there's no magic fix. The best strategy is to reduce exposure and shift risk where possible through insurance, strong contracts, good community relations, and realistic modeling. Bottom line is, a spectacular deposit in a high-risk country is often a speculative play, not a bankable project. Always evaluate the jurisdiction as carefully as the geology. If you found this useful, like, subscribe, and share for more mining insights. Because in the resource world, knowledge isn't just power, it's value. Thanks for watching.